what are the decks that you play the most? What are your favorite decks? Now, I do want to give a disclaimer here. This is important. This is just my opinion. I'm just a guy. I'm pretty good at card games. I'm not God. I don't have advanced data analytics working in my brain. I don't have any kind of like superpowers related to card games other than being a little bit better than most people at them. So when I say these are my favorite decks, or these are the decks that I enjoy playing, that is in the context of A, the current metagame, B, the people I play against, and it is not objective empirical data. It's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But I do not want to hear anyone come to me and say, I did X because you said this was the best deck. Because I want to be super clear. Marvel Snap, I do not recommend you buy anything. It is not good value to buy anything in Marvel Snap. All of the cards in Pool 3 you shouldn't buy, because why would you pay 1,000 tokens when you get it for free later? All of the cards in Pool 4 will end up in Pool 3. Why would you pay 3,000 tokens if you will get it for free later? It's all bad value. You have to figure out how you value each card individually, rather than looking for a good deal or the best card. So that's another important thing to understand. You need to do that. So with all that in mind, I have a ton of decks. And these are the decks that I have played the most this season. They are not all the best deck in the game because there's like 10 of them. But they're all good. So let's talk about it. We'll start with this. This is baseline, just a baseline on reveal deck. And I also do want, while we're here, I want to talk about substitutions. There are some cards that are substitutable. There are some that are not. Cards that are integral to the game plan here, Wong, Doctor Doom, those are not replaceable. Something like Absorbing Man definitely is. Something like Green Goblin definitely is. The cards that are integral to the game plan, you can't do anything about. So what's important when you look at a deck is understanding what it's trying to do and figuring out if that's the right thing to do. Now, I will say about this build of the deck, it's not the only build of the deck you can play. You can play a version with Arnim Zola and Black Panther that has that as a backup plan in here. I think that is totally fine and good. It is a totally viable deck. I just didn't have it built, and I haven't played it that much. But it is totally fine as long as you are willing to, you know, like sort of lose to Cosmo just like you are here, right? So the number one thing people are probably going to ask is, what's up with the Daredevil? It's a defensive Daredevil. You don't want to get arrowed. You don't want to get Cosmoed. You would like to know if they're going to screw up your Wong. You leave. The number two question is probably, what is that America Chavez doing here? The America Chavez is here to make us more likely to draw Wong. That's actually it. It's the whole thing. If you don't think that's a good idea, feel free to change it. If you don't want to play Sunspot, feel free to play Iceman. This is baseline Ongoing Destroyer. This is 11 Pool 1 and 2 cards and 1 Pool 3 card. It is, in my opinion, the best budget deck outside of perhaps Devil Dinosaur, and it uses less Pool 3 cards in its optimal form, as Devil Dinosaur needs perhaps Quinjet, Arrow, and Leader. This just needs Destroyer. It's a good deck. You don't need Claw in there. Claw can be Iron Man. You can mess around with various other ongoings. This is the build I have enjoyed the most. I recommend it if you are very early into the game. It's very simple, but sort of deceptively difficult to play in that you only really make one decision a turn, but if you make the wrong decision, you kind of instantly lose the game. This is your classic Death Wave She-Hulk deck. I have built it here just accepting that we lose to Leader. Just saying, you know, we lose to Leader always. We are always losing to Leader. And so we have America Chavez to draw Wave more. I have done the math, or to be more accurate, my chat has helped me do the math. Playing America Chavez makes you more likely to draw the combination of Wave plus one of She-Hulk or Death. And the math is a little complex here because you need to draw Wave by turn 5, whereas you need the others later. That's why America Chavez ends up actually helping you now that there are 2 combos with Wave in the deck. when there is only one combo with Wave in the deck, it is not correct to run America Chavez. Why not your own leader? I built this just sort of, this is like a baseline build. If you want to include leader, arrow, I think those are totally viable, arguably better. You know what I mean? These are not, you have to play this exact list. These are not, I think this is the optimal list. These are shells. These are, feel free to use this and then play around with the shell and see what works for you. I definitely don't want people thinking my lists are the only way to play. I definitely don't want people thinking they have to copy everything I'm doing word for word, card for card, anything like that. Would you put Magneto in the Death Shell? I think he is the worst of the 3 ones that you can play, which are Arrow, Leader, and Magneto. He's the worst of them, I believe. So we have here my Thanos build. It's great. It's also extremely pay to win, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. I know most of the people that watch this are not going to have Bast and Thanos. It would be a mistake to talk about the decks I've played the most this season without talking about this deck. It is very compelling in the context of a metagame filled with leader, because one of the best ways to counteract leader is to get your buffs on the board early. Khazar and Blue Marvel let you do that, and then you just sort of play a bunch of 1-drops later in the game. Is this the best deck in the game? No. Even if you have all of these cards, like when I say pay to win here, it's a little facetious. I don't think Bast is required. I don't think this deck is amazing. I do think it's pretty good, though. This is the deck that I tend to recommend to most people as they enter Pool 2, or as they leave Pool 2 and enter Pool 3. This is the deck I think they should target in the collection track. This is the deck that I used for the final part of my climb to Infinite much earlier in the month than this. It is Life Leader, and there is a variant of it that if you don't want to run Leader, you can run America Chavez instead. It is named this because Life Coach, the great Life Coach, this basically his build of the archetype, and I, a super genius Gigabrain, decided that it would be better to put Leader in it than America Chavez. Other things you can do in the shell: you can put Lizard in there. You can mess around with the 1-drop slot. Quinjet is not particularly required. There are plenty of ways to play around here. Now, what I enjoy about this is it does well playing on curve, because the best thing you can do to be able to play on curve is to include more 1-drops in your deck. And it does a very good job of including them while not sacrificing the power of having a full hand from Devil Dinosaur, or of playing Arrow, or even of sacrificing the board space necessary for Leader. And that is something of a metagame consideration that you'll have to make. Now, you can replace Quinjet with something. Lizard, sure, whatever. You cannot replace Arrow. If you do not have Arrow, you cannot play this deck. This is a deck that uses Arrow as a sort of checkmate kind of endgame. It is not replaceable here. This is the deck I have probably had the most success with over the course of the season. I'm not saying it's the best deck in the game. I kind of think it is, but again, like, that's just my opinion. I definitely don't want you to come away from this and say, like, oh, this must be the best deck in the game because he says it is. I think that my opinion is, like, maybe 20% more valuable than like any random YouTube commenter. I definitely don't think that you would be correct to hear me say I think this is the best deck and then come away 100% convinced of that. Let me put it that way. It is quite simply a collection of the best cards in the game. That's it. That's all it is. It's just the best cards in the game. You play them, and then you play one of the cards that slams the door. Arrow and Leader slam the door. You get ahead by playing things like Maximus. Don't be afraid to play Maximus on curve. They're going to draw 2 cards. You're going to Leader those cards anyway. Who cares? This deck is great at beating up on Death Wave, which is... I was almost hesitant to include Death Wave in this video at all because of just how hard it loses to Leader and just how hard it loses to Leech. But this is, in my opinion... It is the deck I have done the best with over the course of the season. This is the most recent iteration of Silver Surfer that I have put together. It is my favorite of them. I have tried a ton of different shells for Silver Surfer. I have tried the Bast negative Silver Surfer. I tried this deck with Domino. I tried running Chavez to draw my Sarah more. I tried running Storm and Juggernaut. I tried cutting Sarah. I tried everything. And this is what has worked the best for me. And frankly, it is very strong. And it is, what you'll notice is it kind of just uses the same early game as the deck full of the best cards. Because it turns out that you should just play a deck full of the best cards when you want to do this. Chat is asking about a sub for Polaris. You kind of just have to play a 3-drop there. It's unfortunate. There's nothing that replicates her perfectly. She's above stats and has a useful effect. I enjoy the way that she works. There's not really a one-to-one replacement here, I believe. And that's sort of an issue with a lot of these cards. Cards you cannot substitute in this deck. Sarah, Brood, Silver Surfer, potentially Maximus. Those are very tough to substitute because, again, like, if you, let's say you really need priority because you need a Cosmo like a Wong or something, right? If you need that priority really badly, the turn you expect them to play Wong, you can play that Maximus and you can be pretty sure you're going to get that priority. And there's not really like another card that replicates that well. It is just a big bundle of stats. You'd say it would be Swordmaster, but you're never actually playing Swordmaster on turn 4. That's so bad. So he's very difficult to replace in terms of how his abilities allow you to use your abilities. Juggernaut is a good card that you can play. It's not the end of the world to play Juggernaut. I do think Storm is like actively bad in this deck due to how predictable your plays are after it. And last deck is the deck I enjoy playing the most, but it's probably the worst of the decks that I've talked about today. This is pure Copium. This deck runs entirely on Cope and Hope. It's just an old style Sarah deck. I love playing old style Sarah. It is my favorite thing in the world to play old style Sarah. And again, you'll notice that we're playing a lot of the same really good cards in here. Lizard, Mr. Fantastic, Maximus, Killmonger. These cards show up a lot. Now, this is, yeah, Deathwave relies on Cope in that you just don't queue into leader. But this deck relies on Cope in that it's probably behind in every matchup it plays. And those are kind of different. There's this a little different. In terms of replacements, Arrow is absolutely irreplaceable. You cannot replace Arrow. You cannot replace Sarah in any Sarah deck. That's why they're called Sarah decks. So there are other kinds of replacements, though. And I see one of the questions I get the most about this deck is, can I replace Mysterio? And I think this is a little bit of a digression, but it's also worth talking about. It might end up getting cut in a YouTube video. I don't know. When you look at a card like Mysterio, it does a lot of different things in this deck. 1, it breaks leader symmetry if you play it late. 2, it is fodder for Carnage if you play it early. 3, it's a bunch of bodies that all get buffed by Nova if you play it early. So it's a card that, if you remove it, changes how good the other cards in your deck are. If you take him out for, let's just pretend there's a generic 2/4. Let's say you replace Mysterio with just a card that was a 2/4. It makes Carnage a little bit worse. It makes Nova a little bit worse. And then you have to think about, okay, if Carnage and Nova are a little bit worse, do I need to play them too? So I think that applies sort of across the board for deck building in Marvel Snap. It's actually probably should be included in this video now that I think about it, because there are a lot of people that'll ask for one-to-one replacements. There are no one-to-one replacements. And when you do a change like that, you have to think about, like, what other effects on my deck does that have? So, like, people ask, you know, no one has Shuri because she's in pool 5. What do if I replace Shuri? Okay, let's say you take Shuri out. Is Vision still good? That's an open question. Like, it is, let's say you don't have leader. Do you even want to play this deck if you don't have leader? It's interesting. I don't know. Would you rather just play, if you don't have Shuri, would you rather just play the Leech version of this? It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer. And you have to figure it out, and that's what makes Marvel Snap good. So those are the, what is it? How many decks was this? 1, 2, 3, 8. Those are the top 8 decks I played this month. Look for that on YouTube. These are the top 8 decks I played this month in Marvel Snap. These are my favorites. They may not be the best. They are my favorites. They also may not be the perfect lists. Enjoy this is the best I can do for like just giving you all a look into my net decks. Feel free to take any of them. They're not always going to stay this way for long. I know cards go in and out of a lot of them, but these are all decks that I feel confident playing into most situations. So thanks so much for watching. See you next time.